Welcome to Unbossed, where we spotlight bold, compassionate, heart-centered leaders who are flipping the script on traditional business. At Heart Profit, we believe leadership is no longer about command and control and profit at all costs. It's about care, connection, and culture that actually helps people thrive. And when people thrive, our businesses thrive. Unbossed is our space to showcase the real ones, the leaders building workplaces where mental health, belonging, and high performance all go hand in hand. If you've ever felt like you had to choose between being a good human and being a good boss, this series is for you because we believe the future of leadership is unbossed, unbought, and unapologetically human. So welcome everybody. Today we have our co-host Gloria with HPWP. Hi Gloria, how are you this morning?
Excited for this conversation, that's for sure.
And we have Jas Kirk. So Jas, welcome.
Thank you. I'm extremely excited about this conversation and connecting with you both, Gloria and Stacy.
Today, we're diving into a topic that is no longer a luxury in business or a trend. It is about survival. We are in a mental health crisis in the society we live in, and we as leaders can no longer play around with this mental health stuff in the workplace. We have to get serious about it. We have to figure it out, and we have to provide workplaces where people can thrive. So Gloria, you were going to share some statistics around this.
Yes, indeed. But let me just start with this one. In one report, it says 80% of people report that their job negatively impacts their mental health. 70% say they would choose mental health support over higher pay. 81% of workers say they'll look for workplaces that support it. 60% of employees say their job is the biggest factor influencing their mental health. That's really the perfect reason for why we have Jas here on the show. People are making decisions on mental well-being and where they work. And what I don't want people to get confused about is thinking that this is just a young person problem. It's not a young person problem. It's not just the Gen Z and the millennials. Every generation in the workplace is impacted. The stressors may be different. Those things that are a priority may be different from one generation to the next. It does have an impact on all of the generations.
The work that I do, of course, I'm aware of those numbers, but I feel like most people think they're much less. So they look at their circumstance and they're like, I don't want to be the one. But it's beautiful to, at least when you know the numbers and you have the information, you can do something about it.
What we really want to do is create this kind of awareness and create a sense of urgency about doing something about it, about being proactive with it. And as leaders, we're certainly impacted because we've got to lead a team of people. And the more that we understand, the more we can think about ways in which to approach it and to support people, change how we operate our organizations, then we're in a better position to keep our organizations running smoothly and taking care of people and finding that balance. When you do that, people will stay longer, the ultimate win-win.
I heard one of an executive leader in a corporation that is a global company that has 92,000 employees globally. Their innovations officer at their annual meeting said, if we don't take care of our people problem, we are not going to have a business in 3 to 5 years. The trajectory is not good. So this is no longer, oh, it's nice to be nice kind of thing. This is like our house is on fire. Humanity's house is on fire. Our businesses are not going to thrive and survive if we don't incorporate some of this stuff. So Jas, welcome to this conversation. I'm so excited about you helping us unpack this situation. How can we do things different?
We all are dealing with the same stresses, same problems, but nobody's talking about it. The CEO who has 92,000 employees has stresses, but the CEO doesn't really get to share. My mental health is suffering. And then the administrative person is over here same way, like I'm stressed. And so it's like, how do we build trust? How do we build honest conversation? How do we come together and say, I'm a human just as well as you're a human. I respect the work you do. You respect the work I do. Now let's begin. It's the one thing, and Gloria, I think you shared this at the beginning. It's proactive doesn't mean you're throwing 100 things at the wall and saying we do this, this, and this.
Yep.
It's incremental, like little things that if you're proactive with that at the beginning, you don't become reactive and have to apply 100 things. And there's this huge culture shock of there's a shift because even when you think about each generation needs something different. And so when you can have that one little thing, that one habit that can be across the entire company, and when you think about kind leadership, compassionate leadership, anybody can be a leader. It doesn't matter the position you're in and you're managing several people, you can always lead intentionally and compassionately.
Influence is leadership, right? That's really what it is. And for me, it's so interesting because we take a look, we hear the term work-life balance, and that just means we're trying to balance work with life. And those two things aren't separate.
Yeah.
Really more of an integration. And I think some of the challenges we saw decades ago, employee assistance programs come up. That was the way to deal with any of the mental health or other outside stuff people were going through. And the challenge is when you keep that stuff separate, we've got to benefit for that. Don't, you know what? We don't want to, we send the message subconsciously of, we don't talk about it, you go here for it.
Yeah.
Rather than to say, okay, people are dealing with a lot. The generations need different things. How do we start creating stuff in our organizations and creating conversation where, yeah, we've got these resources off to the side, but it usually takes conversation and encouragement and support to get people to utilize those other resources.
And
Yeah.
those resources always, like, instead of making it like this, they're always like this, where
Mhm.
they're off to the side, go over there versus you can be a part of that versus really understanding it's intertwined within. And so it's really important when you talk about EAP resources, people understand that because a lot of companies have employee assistance programs, but a lot of people don't necessarily utilize it, or it's not helpful for their life and what they have going on, or the type of therapist they would like to use. So it's a lot more research and individual research that people have to explore, you know? So I think that's also a conversation in itself. This program is set up, but you also have to take the time, and that it's not just like, let me pick my insurance and let me pick my dental and pick, it's not this really quick checkbox. It's really intentional work.
I want you to help our leaders understand a little bit more about what kind of specific things does it mean to when you said you got your new boss and he or she you started having mental health issues when you were with this new boss that was not a good leader. What kind of things did that boss do that created that, and why did it create mental health issues in you? Can you talk a little bit more and help unpack what that looks like for somebody who's looking at this going, well, I don't know, am I causing mental health issues in my people?
So the one thing, the reason I knew something was wrong is because I got curious and I asked questions. But the one thing that would come up is feedback. And she would say, I'm giving feedback, but it became overwhelming where I was like, okay, we love feedback. Almost every day it's feedback. And I vocalized, this is a lot for me because it's not seeming as if I have time to work on the things I need to without it always being this feedback. So at this point, it's extremely aggressive. So at work, on top of doing your work and having a 40-hour week and still taking calls and taking meetings and all of this, it's discouraging. And you have to acknowledge, like, if you're having issues at work, and you have someone who's addressing it in ways that you don't communicate, right? Then you're being told you need to communicate how I communicate or everyone else communicates, really does do something to you as a human being. You start to think like something's wrong with me. I started doing more education to have better business knowledge. So when I started to personally address things and I'm still hitting the same wall, I had to start recognizing maybe it's this person. Maybe I've done everything I needed to do. And sometimes that is the case where you have a really great boss and there's this transition and it feels really heavy and negative. And it's like, I always tell people you have to get curious and you have to go inward. And you can't pick yourself apart until you find the thing. You really get focused, and you also, with that, all of that intention and getting curious, it helps you get to the root of something. And if every time the root is something external, you really have to start looking at, okay, maybe this problem isn't just my problem. And I had that conversation with my boss because I did say that this is a hard conversation, but I need to address it. And I addressed, like, hey, the feedback is a lot for me. Can we maybe discuss this, the feedback being less? And then I also went to other leadership individuals to get clarity on, maybe is it just this going on or that going on? And I always kind of kept coming back to, no, it's really this person experiencing this. Although the team implemented meditations and conversation about mental health, underneath that, it was really fragile because you'd get on calls with other team members and you'd see, like, oh my God, I didn't do that right. Oh my God, I sent the wrong email. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. My boss is going to check up. And I'm like, oh, I'm not the only one experiencing it. My anxiety is high and I'm making errors, but there's this like pressure. And so a culture can say, we talk about mental health, we support your mental health, but under that, if it's really not built on solid foundation, you see it through the people. You see it with how reactive versus proactive people are. You see it with how calm they are in circumstances. You see it with how everyone is. So that's where I started to when I got curious, when I worked on me, and it came up again. I'm like, this is the culture. This is the culture masking itself as a positive culture, and it's really not.
And you did the right thing by being curious about yourself. I mean, self-awareness is huge. And if we all take that inward look and just be curious, ask questions, seek to understand, we're in a better position. You weren't met with that very same thing. Leaders need to have that same mindset in terms of being curious. And what leaders tend to do is to be I'm the higher level person. I'm the senior person. I'm your boss. I'm going to give you feedback. And we somehow turn feedback into a weapon. We weaponize feedback when really feedback is about relationships, connection, reinforcing what people are doing well, and providing the tips. That particular leader had a missed opportunity to be curious as well. Because if you're curious, if you're giving feedback all the time, you got to ask yourself, what's going on?
But is it feedback or is it constant criticism? And I think
It
as
sounds like
leaders, you have to be intentional about that. Feedback, it can be a difficult conversation, but it still should be empowering, right? It should be it should be clear.
It'd be a good thing, ultimately.
Yeah, but people can have feedback can be extremely tough for individuals. But then it's also, you can't mask it just because you're a manager or a supervisor. This is feedback when ultimately it could just be criticism. And you could have a bias, but you're not, you just because you're higher up, you have this relationship where someone looks at you and they're like, I'm nervous to speak up for myself because my direct supervisor gave me feedback, although it's criticism.
Yep.
And if you're always being criticized to say, well, I would have done it like this, well, it's not an I thing. It's, how can I set you up for your greatest success in this role? And if I can't, how can we get you the tools and resources that you need?
And when you're giving feedback to folks, even if it's a tough conversation, as a leader, still having that curious mindset, we've got to tune into how the employee is reacting and receiving it. And if they're overly quiet about it or their body language suggests something, it's a chance, if we really care, to circle back and check back in to say, I know we've had some tough conversations lately. I want to see where you're at with
Yeah.
things, right? It's that curiosity really needs to go both ways. And honestly, I'd say that's even a higher expectation for a leader. That leaders
Yeah.
are the ones who really need to step up and be curious. Leadership is not a one size fits all approach.
At
People are different. They're unique. We've got to tune into that.
What are the most common red flags that you could give to somebody that would indicate that a workplace is harming somebody's mental well-being?
I think the biggest thing is you have to get into the body. I addressed like I went inward and you feel it like neck, chest. It's hard when you think about taking a breath, like right now, if we took an inhale and an exhale, and think about if someone's on a call, a team call or something, and they feel that heaviness, it something's there, granted, and that's where I always say get curious because I have to explore, do I just need a massage or does this moment tense me up? Do I get anxious with my voice and do I become like less quiet? You know, there's a culture of like people just are off camera and they don't want to be on and they're just like, yeah, I'm here. That also sheds a tone of what's going on. Like you don't just want people who show up and are off camera. You want people who are present. You know, are you actually present? So first, the when you say red flag, I think self-awareness is probably the biggest thing. How are you within your body in the space that you're working? And then it also starts to be outside of work because it's not just your 9 to 5 time. It's after that time. Are you beginning to do things to either numb that entire 8 hours or however many hours, and that you're completely going into this space of like, I need to decompress and not and shut off, right? Are you able to function with everything else, or does everything else begin to fall to the wayside when though that time or whatever it is? And I don't want to just say 9 to 5 because people have fluctuating work hours, but those become serious conversations of what's going on with self from the time you're at work to the time right after work to the time that you need to put into and invest in other things and yourself. If you're a morning person and you're like, I'm not getting good sleep, that's a really good sign of like something's happening, something's going on. But I keep going back to, you have to get curious. You can't just say, it is what it is. It's busy season, because then all of a sudden it becomes, if busy season's in April and then summer comes and then that's another crazy season because you got to deal with the kids and camps and all of this, and then the holidays come. So next thing you know, you're 7 months, 8 months of busy season, and that you feel that in the body, you feel that in the mind, you feel that in how you're interacting with people and why you experience unkind individuals. And you get back to that compassion and think about leaders who, if they manage 10 people and 10 people have all this heaviness, now you're just a leader that you're 11 people with heaviness. And how do you hold all of that up with strength? I don't think we do.
Could you talk a little bit about what does it look like when leaders get it right? What kind of green flags do we see when leaders are getting it right?
I think first you'll definitely notice it with your people, them being encouraged to take ownership and lead more themselves. They will, and getting curious again, they'll explore, how can I add additional value outside of my day to day? It'll be easy, right? It'll have this effortless flow versus this intense need to prove, right? Where someone's gunning for that promotion, but they're tense in it, versus someone who's just like, man, you're really excelling here, but you have a boss who champions you. They champion your voice in meetings. They don't take the they don't take your accolades, where they're like, no, Gloria did this, you know. And I really want us to recognize it. And that's also where you sometimes have that culture that seems to have that, but underneath, if you go 3 levels deep, you're like, the foundation's like really messed up here. It's not really strong as we think. And so good, really great leaders see their team surpassing them. That's what you begin to see. You begin to see someone who's at a managerial level, and the next thing you know, if it's you, Stacey, you're over here and you're ahead of that person. That becomes those leaders who I see the success in you and as an individual, and when I see the success in you and pour into you and develop you as the individual, of course you'll do a really great job at the position. But so it's like it's this domino effect you can't not see it. You so
What you just explained beautifully is something that Gloria says in her workshops is like, do you want to create commitment or compliance in your people? And when we were first talking about the red flags, it was about compliance. People were worried about getting it wrong. They were like, I want to do it right. I want to make sure I get it right. The second thing, when you're talking about all of those qualities for your people, if you're getting it right, this is what your people are doing, was commitment. Like they're committed. They want to go above and beyond. They want to take responsibility and accountability. Like that goes into like the ripple effect. If you get it right as a leader, there's all of these benefits. Like your people step up and start doing a whole lot
yeah.
better in their work. And one of the things that I heard in that as a thread is that the boss takes the mindset of how can I make my people successful? How can I help my people succeed? And that is a true leader who's a coach is like, I see where you're at here. I see your potential, and my job is to help you get there. I see this is the job that needs to get done, and there's some obstacles in here. How can I help you overcome those obstacles to reach the goal? And so really it's a whole attitude shift from the leader, from command and control, to how can I help my people be the best that they can be?
But it's seeing the individual. Like there's a role you have to fill, but there's an individual in that role. And if Gloria fills a marketing role, it's not Gloria's marketing. Gloria is a human being who knows how to do marketing really well. And so you have to be able to see beyond the role. And I think some leaders, they see you as this list of boxes that you're needing to check, and ultimately it's abundance sitting in front of them as a person, because I can have really great marketing experience but also be someone who's creative. So how can we ignite that, right? And that brings value back to the business. But when you only see someone as their role, just like if someone has a job or a career, like I can clock in and out, or I can show up and be passionate about the work that I do. And that doesn't have to be that you don't always have to like what you do, but you can respect it and value it. Or you can just show up and be like I cash a paycheck. It got my bills paid this month. So
Right.
it's a lot. And, it's people feel that when you have a great boss, it's easy to talk to them. It's easy to let them in. It's easy to be vulnerable. When you don't have that within a boss or a supervisor or a manager, it's hard to grow through something in life and then share that in the place that you spend all of your time. And you have this extra pressure of, I hope she doesn't see me. Like, and how horrible is that feeling of, I hope this person doesn't see all the pain I'm experiencing on this side,
Mhm.
and I can just show up to work. And that's like, if you really just hearing that, like, I hope they don't see this struggle. If I dealt with grief, or if I dealt with a heartache, or I dealt with, you're dealing with financial issues, you never want to show up and want to be unseen. But that's how most people, if you're not in safe spaces, and granted, work doesn't have to check all those safe boxes, but you, with great compassionate leaders, can know, like, Jas has some things going on at home, on at home, but I see her, I know her as an employee, and I trust she can still get the job done regardless, versus someone who judges. Jazz has some things going on, and I feel like this may, distract her. And this may, and those are pressures that I would feel as an employee. Like, I hope this isn't distracting, or I hope I'm producing great product and quality of work. And so it's all of these, it's that shift of, do you see it this way or do you see it this way?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to leave our guests without practical actions that they can take. So, can you give us, let's say, two simple things that a leader who's listening to this, who says, I really want to create a safe space for my people. I want to create a space for mental well-being with my people. What are two things they could do this week to shift the well-being for their people? Just two small things.
I will always say start with self, because if I'm leading, I have to think where I'm coming from. So that compassion, you always have to be able to give it to self. So one, get curious. Even as leaders, we don't know any and everything. I think that's been my theme throughout is get curious and stay curious. And then you have to ask questions in order to hold space. You have to open up the lines of communication. So if you get curious and then you ask questions, you'll really actually see where your culture is. And it doesn't have to be anything epic. It can just be, how are you today? Starting a call with, how are you doing today? And like, even that stillness, like you just even felt after that question, how are you doing? Not how have you been? How are you doing today? And just take a breath after that and leave room for that. And you
Absolutely.
can also see if someone's just like doing 100 things and they're like, I'm gonna, but if we put our hands down and we're not typing, how are you today? So get curious and ask questions. And if you're really trying to hold space and shift a culture, you have to be able to, like, how have you been? How are you today? Question mark, and leave room to hear it, feel it, experience it.
So it's tuning in to when you ask that question, tuning into how the person is
Yeah.
showing what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're feeling. Love it.
I I know we have to like head off, but the reason I try to make it so simple, it's because it's this what do I do versus be. Shifting culture is about being present. It's not doing all of these things. If you care for people, it's in how you show up, it's in how you listen. And so if there's anything I want to leave leaders with, employees with, or anything, it's this shift from they provide us with all of these things versus they allow me to be. And when the leader can be, then you make space. It's really about holding space. So I felt like I'm like, if on my drive, I don't want to leave people with like, oh, okay. Like, no, we really have to shift from being this culture of do, 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 do. Here's 150 things we've implemented as a company and never like we're still enough to be.
Okay, Jazz, this was absolutely amazing. I can already see we need you on the show on a regular basis.
Well,
On the third week of every month, we talk about mental health in the workplace. So I think you should have like a regular space on our show for that, so that we can continue. There's so much we didn't get to talk about and so much we didn't get to unpack. But let's do it. Let's do it again, and let's just make this a regular thing. We'll pick a topic and then we'll do it together.
well, I love that and can't wait to be back next month. So thank you, ladies.
All
Thank
right. Thanks for being here, y'all. And if you are interested in finding out more about the Heart Profit certification process, where we teach you all of the things that we talked about, you can visit our website at heartprofit.org. We would love to have you along the journey and walk with you hand in hand while we're bringing in this new era of compassionate leadership, where we can have people thriving and profits at the same time. Thank you, Jas, so much for coming on here and sharing with us. I am so excited to really transform workplaces.
Yeah. Well, thank you, ladies. Have a great one, guys.
All right, thanks, you too.
Thanks.